Right. I think this is all working. I just realised I'm getting an echo. Because lo and behold, I forgot to mute my browser windows. So it's refresh. And this is why I don't do spontaneous streams. Is that any better? A little, right. Well, originally it was because I had my browser window unmuted, and so we were getting feedback from my stream. There is reverb on this mic anyway, because there's a wall directly behind it, and so you're getting some of the bounce. It's also a webcam mic, so at some point I'll get a proper mic and we'll solve the problem. But anyway, so yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a hard wall echo. Well, I have a friend who has generously offered me his. So when I finally get to actually meet up with people, I might grab it off him. So anyway, welcome to the stream, which is more than just a conversation between me and Connor. I am going to do some revisions to my Dragon Blade, so it's very useful that Connor's here. I don't know. It says I had 2 viewers, although to be fair, one might just be me. Let's have a look. Kitten's here, although she's probably working and lurking. So hello, Kitten. It's a bit weird, actually, to have you at one of my streams, Connor. Anyway. So we're doing some revisions to my Dragon Blade. A specific version of which is known as Nineveh. The sword for my my sword mage, Archimedes. So that was the prototype on which this was built originally. And having done some sort of play, I've been just firstly with the sword itself in an actual D&D game, but also role-playing in sort of text with other people as well, with an older version of Archimedes. I've determined that I need to do, or I want to do, some revisions to the sword. So that's what I've been working on. I've already done some revisions, minimal, but I thought let's experiment and do some revisions live on stream. I have no idea how well this will go. It might get very crazy and chaotic, but I'm sitting here feeling quite nervous for a stream, which is weird, but there we go. So, assuming that other people will be watching this at some point, and will not necessarily know what's in this Dragon Blade, I am going to let me start by talking you through what I've got at the moment. So broadly speaking, the idea around the Dragon Blade, it's drawn together the ideas from the traditional D&D Forgotten Realms Moonblade, which is a sentient magic weapon, and with elements of critical roles, vestiges of divergence. So you've got the sentience aspect, and you've got the fact that it levels with the character. Because I'm the sort of person and player who I assign attachment to the items that my character possesses. I'm not the sort of person who will just ditch an item just because a better one's come along. I want to retain an item that is important to me throughout my character's life, career, campaign, whatever you like. Hey kitten! See, I knew you were there. And so I've been, for quite a while, every time I thought about this, I thought about various ways of trying to get an item to level up, and the vestiges concept actually worked really well. Right, let me talk through it. So the Dragon Blade, it's a sentient weapon. It's a longsword. Could apply to other swords, but I'm going with a longsword. And it combines the soul of a dragon with elven magic to create this sword. The Sword Mage class does not actually require a Dragon Blade. It's something that I've created purely for Archimedes. The Sword Mage class just requires a bladed melee weapon. So in terms of the... Right, so we have a load of lore here. There's a soul donated from an ancient dragon. It is an ancient dragon. You could use other dragons. I like the idea of using an ancient dragon. You've got bits of gumph in here that were pulled almost directly from the Moonblade description. I fully expect you to take notes, Connor. Fully expect you to take notes. As my DM. So in terms of sentience, it has the soul of a dragon. Now, I think for ease, we said it has hearing and blind sight out to a range of 120 feet. Which is only semi-relevant, because at least initially it's very difficult for this weapon to communicate to the wielder if anything's actually in that range. But we'll get to that in a minute. I am delighted, Connor. Absolutely delighted. I'm looking forward to it. And initially, again, inspired by the Moonblade, the weapon communicates by transmitting emotions, sending a sort of tingling sensation through the wielder's hand. There's a bit that I've added here that I'll get to in a minute. And then when it wants to, sending a tingling sensation when it wants to communicate something, and then it can communicate more explicitly through visions or dreams when the wielder is asleep. So I've written already a couple of nice little short stories. No, one short story, because we've only leveled up once. I need to write a second. So yeah, let's step back. I am currently playing Archimedes, my sword mage, in Connor's campaign. We've just leveled up to level 3. So I wrote a dream sequence from level 1 to level 2, where it's the first time that Archimedes has actually come face to face with Nineveh, the soul of the dragon, in a dream state, and he gets to see her as she was as a dragon. She is a gold dragon, by the way. So yeah, I wrote a nice little dream sequence there. There was something I wanted to add, because to my mind, the blade being able to sense out to this 120-foot range would allow them to wake up the wielder when they're sleeping. So I added that bit in there, a mental ping. It's not directional, it's not any other information, it's just something's coming, wake up. So that prevents the wielder from being surprised in that sort of sense, right? Equivalent to a sort of an alarm spell, something like that. We then went, right, well, we need a save DC. And when we originally did this, we based the stats entirely on the owner's stats. So you had the owner's proficiency bonus and the owner's primary stat. Because using the soul of an ancient dragon, I went, well, the dragon's probably going to be quite overpowered at lower levels. It then occurred to me playing Archimedes that Archimedes has a +4 intelligence modifier, which is the same as the ancient dragon's intelligence modifier. So I went, actually thinking about it, there's no major problems with using the dragon's intelligence modifier for the saving throw. The issue then becomes the proficiency bonus, because at level 1 your proficiency bonus is 2 and a dragon's is 7, which would be a big deal. So I thought, okay, we'll now change that to using the dragon's intelligence modifier, which varies slightly between dragons. They're all around 4, but the owner's proficiency bonus. So the DC will increase as the owner levels up. And we'll get to how that's used later. Then you got aspect of the bond. So the blade is bonded. So the blade retains the personality of the dragon whose soul it contains, which makes sense. It's a dragon soul. It's more than that, actually, Connor. Advantage is roughly +3. So yeah. So yeah, using the dragon's proficiency bonus would be a big deal. Big deal. So hence why using the owners is more sensible for that. There's more lore stuff as to how the blade chooses its wielder. Again, mostly taken from Moonblade. One important thing here is that when it's not bonded with an owner, it's a normal longsword. The ideals had to be shared between the Dragon Blade and the owner in order for the dragon to grant the owner the higher levels. For the moment, I've assumed that these blades are only good in nature. Just because of the way that they come about to it. In my mind, the lore is that they're created by elves in agreement with the dragons, or the dragon in question. So they're likely to be good aligned. Yeah, you could get a cursed blade with an evil dragon soul, but I'm not thinking about that at the moment. So if you've got a good aligned dragon blade with a character that's evil, the blade will be quite loyal to that owner, but will say, I don't agree with what you're doing, so I'm not going to grant you the higher levels of power that you might otherwise get, essentially. And it will continually judge its owner. So if a character falls from grace at some point and turns into a complete murder hobo, then the dragon will say, you no longer are worthy of this power. It's a very Thor thing. Not that the dragon blade becomes heavy and you can no longer wield it, but you'll no longer get the high levels of power. I've got an itchy nose. It's very annoying. Anyway, and I added this nice bit here, which I quite like. It's in a game context, it could be a bit harsh, but I like it. And it basically says if anybody steals a sword or takes the sword and tries to use it, and in game terms, whether they'd be allowed to use it would be determined by the dragon, i.e. the DM. But if they disagree, then they have to make a wisdom saving throw against this DC. If they fail that saving throw, they immediately drop the sword, and they immediately take 1d8 times the owner's proficiency bonus in psychic damage. So at the highest level, that could be 1d8 times 6, 68. Just for attempting to use the sword, which I think is quite cool. And if they save against that and take half damage, and they will use the sword at disadvantage permanently. This is a sword that does not like to be used by other people. And then standard proficiency things. And then we get to the interesting stuff. So you have levels of power. And this is something that we're going to be working on in a minute. So you attune to this sword, and basically for your first 5 or 6 levels, and again that's determined by the DM, it is just a normal longsword with the addition of sentience and the fact that that sentient being has perception. But other than that, it's a normal longsword. Behaves like a normal longsword. That's it. When you get to the awakened state, I said here at least 6 level. That's typical. It depends on whether you've got a high magic setting or a low magic setting. It could be later, it could be soon. It becomes a +1 weapon. And because I've designed this as a weapon for my sword mage, it's also used as spell focus, so that +1 applies to spell attacks, which is generally how the rules for magic weapons work if you look them up. What I am considering doing, and I will probably make that change in this session, is rather than the damage roll just being a +1 bonus for the default damage, that the +1 is a damage type that relates to the dragon. So in the case of a gold dragon, it would be +1 fire damage, or for a silver dragon +1 cold damage, rather than just straight additional to damage, because I think that's quite cool. Also, we've got different abilities at different levels. I need to name these abilities, because in play it's easier to use a name of an ability than just say, I do the thing that does this thing, and then have to read it out. So in this awakened state, as I've called it, yeah, it's a simple, you can illuminate the sword. That will, I think, I've said as a bonus action. And again, the effect that this takes on depends on the dragon. So for a gold dragon, it's a sort of fiery glow. For a bronze dragon, which is lightning based, it'll be a sort of sparkly, electrical type, that sort of thing. Yeah, something that makes sense. One thing that I will get to later when I'm actually doing the changes, I'm thinking of adding in additional abilities to communicate between sword and wielder at the higher levels. Because it doesn't make sense to me that when you've got to this superior state, you're fully bonded with this weapon, you still can't actually talk to it telepathically. So I'll make those changes as well. We'll get there. I'm just talking you through it, and then we'll get there. Enhanced. Again, I've said at least 10th level. That's typically where +2 weapons come in. Again, DM's choice. So yeah, that's Yeah, I think I've said that the visual effect of this light depends on the great worm whose soul it contains, and then just vague. Exactly. Um. So enhanced level, +2, and again I'm thinking of making the damage specific to an element type. Then we've got this. Again, I need to name the ability. When we first did this, this is a much cruder version of what I was thinking of. So the idea around it was that you can create... It's a sort of illusory effect, but it's not actually an illusion. So it's an illusory effect of this dragon's soul surrounding you. And the idea that it would be used in combat and cause people to become frightened in the same way that a dragon's frightening presence happens. That's the very crude version. The idea in my head is much more nuanced. I want this illusion to be actually a manifestation of the dragon. And so it has semi-physical form. I think greater illusions might also have that. I don't know. I need to look that up. But it has a semi-physical form. Can't do any damage. So if it's a gold dragon, you have this form that's made of fire, but it doesn't actually burn. And it is an actual, rather than being an illusion that the owner creates, it's an actual manifestation of the dragon itself. So it's a separate entity. And I had this idea that this dragon, this form would be a way to communicate with the dragon, or that the dragon could communicate kind of on its own, although in a sort of telepathic method. So it would have broadly one of the three effects, one of which is the frightening presence effect, because that's very useful in combat. And I think, if you have suddenly a manifestation of a dragon appear, that's quite frightening, right? So you've got that. One is I wanted a non-combat version. So a sort of intimidation effect, and that may be applied in terms of negotiation or something. So I was thinking that perhaps for a minute you'd get advantage on intimidation or persuasion checks. So that'd be the sort of second effect. The third effect being simply a method of communication. So, and it will be more role-playing. So you as the owner would be in conversation with somebody who knew this dragon or would be familiar with dragons or something like that, and you want a more physical presence of the dragon to communicate with that NPC. It's entirely a sort of flavourful roleplay effect. There's no mechanical benefit in that sort of effects, or I wouldn't imagine there to be. But that was the much more nuanced idea that I had for this, so I'm going to try and write that in. And again, when you use it, it's a once per long rest thing, so you get to choose the option, and then whichever option you use, you cannot use that again. Not that option. You cannot use any of them again until you complete a long rest. So that way it's not overpowering or anything, it's just more nuance in how that effect applies. And again, when I started thinking about that and having that manifestation having telepathic link with the owner, I was thinking, okay, we need to actually implement more in terms of the communication with the various levels between owner and dragon. So that's another thing that we're working on. And then finally, the super duper level, which again I've said roughly 14th level. The dragon should, but that would be a DM decision. I should actually read out this, because people are gonna watch this back and go, what are you responding to? I can't see the text. Right. So Connor says that the dragon should also be able to cause these effects at will, and not just the wielder, which I agree. But I think that should be at the DM's discretion, and not the player's discretion. These effects that I'm writing here are mechanics that the player can trigger. So obviously I don't want those to be overpowered. Right, superior 14th level. That's roughly when +3 weapons come in. This doesn't go to +3, but I chose a different effect instead. So the first one is act as a ring of spell storing, which is up to 5 levels of spells, and something that has come up that I've seen come up before. It's 5 levels of spells. It is not 1 spell of each level. It's 5 levels of spells. So you either have 1 5th level spell, a 4th level and a 1st level, 3rd level and a 2nd level, etc., etc. Or a 3rd level and 2 1st level. You know, just 5 levels. Which I think is useful in terms of, particularly in relation to Archimedes as a sword mage. He's a half caster. It's nice to have that little bit of extra spell option. Not that the Dragon Soul gets its innate spellcasting back. Well, firstly, in 5th edition, dragons don't have innate spellcasting, which is something that's niggled me. But yes, they don't. Secondly, at that point, if you're going to that extent, you're then dealing with the dragon as an NPC completely, rather than just being part of a sword. I don't want to go that far. It's more that it's a sentient sword than it is a... I know it's a sword with a dragon soul. I'm not explaining this very well. But anyway. It's surprising, right? Dragons do not have innate spellcasting in 5th edition. That's... If I ever get to the point where I am homebrewing campaign, or doing full campaigns, that's the first thing I'm going to change. Dragons should have spellcasting. I know why they've done it. Or I kind of know why they've done it. Because, I mean, an ancient dragon with all its actions and spellcasting is super overpowered. Super overpowered. But yes, they should have innate spellcasting. Which was something that came up when I originally worked on this with Rob. Because I had, in a mental RP sense, an idea in Archimedes' backstory. That involved the dragon casting spells. I might relay that story a bit later, once I've actually done the home brewing stuff, because I need to get onto that. And then I went and looked up the stats of ancient dragons in 5th edition and went, what? They can't cast spells? Really? But anyway. And the other thing is, it grants the owner what is essentially a death ward. But it's the effect of a death ward rather than being a death ward. So the two can stack. I did have another thing, which is still at the bottom here. I don't agree with this version. I prefer my version, but it doesn't work in a mechanical sense. My version doesn't work in a mechanical sense. Anyway. So the other thing that I've done since the last proper version of this is I've added in stat blocks for the various versions of the blade based on different dragons. So they don't have physical stats because it's a soul in a sword, but these are the mental stats of those ancient dragons. And apart from the gold dragon's charisma, I have no idea why that's that high. Apparently gold dragons are very charismatic. They're all fairly normal stats, really. And I've just put in descriptions of what their skills and saving throws are, based on what they should be, adjusting for owner's proficiency bonus. So the skills here, the skills that a gold dragon is proficient in, insight, perception, and persuasion. Yeah, they can, if you need the sword to exercise other skills, then they can do that, it's just not proficient at them. All dragons are doubly proficient in perception. All good dragons. I haven't looked at the bad dragons. All metallic dragons are doubly proficient in perception, which is interesting. So again, I've just put that in and just used the owner's proficiency. Saving throws. I put those in here. Give me. These use the dragon's full stats and the dragon's proficiency bonus because of +7 for gold. And I did that because basically if anyone is going to actually go ahead in a game and have a psychological battle with the soul of a dragon embedded in a sword, why would you not use the dragon's stats for saving throws? So there you go, you get the full stats there. Because at that point the player has nothing to do with it. It's a combat between a character and an NPC. So that's why I put those in. Everything else based on the owner's proficiency bonus. I've added in the element here because it's not always obvious. I mean, I knew that gold is fire and silver is cold, but the other three, I wouldn't actually be able to tell you what they are without looking them up. So I thought I'll put them in there for reference. So you got bronze is lightning, copper is acid, and brass is fire. Realistically, if I were making alternative dragon blades in an in-game context, I would not make a brass one. Because a brass blade would basically be an inferior gold one. And the stats are inferior in pretty much every sense. Whereas the others make sense, the brass one doesn't. So I probably wouldn't ever do that. Other than that, the fact that it has proficiency in history rather than insight. So, yeah. So those stat blocks are something I've added. We then have the Dragon Blessing. Right, so let's get to the story bit. In a short story that I wrote of an event that happened in Archimedes' life, it works as a short story because it's a short story and it's not a D&D game. But this is how the story went. They were in an encounter. Practically everybody apart from Archimedes was unconscious, and he was on the verge of dying or being knocked unconscious. And in the story, at this point, the sword manifested as its full dragon form. And it's very much a Deus Ex Machina thing in the story. I can do that because it's a story and I wrote it. So no. So the dragon manifests, kills all the bad guys, and then there's an RP moment between the dragon and Archimedes. Firstly, allowing Archimedes to see a version of his father, who he never knew, who was the sole previous owner and wielder of the Dragon Blade. And Nineveh also then granted Archimedes a blessing. Which in terms of gameplay mechanics, I don't consider to be the blessing that I'm about to explain. I don't consider it to be hugely subversive. Essentially, it's the from the monk, the Undying Sentinel ability, which basically says you never get old, you can't die from old age, and you don't suffer, you can't be aged magically, and you can't suffer any of the effects of old age. And essentially it's this blessing that means that I get at various points to play a 900-year-old human Archimedes. Because I think that's quite cool. And it sort of treat it in the same way that you get various stories treating sort of immortality. Eventually, you get weary of life. And so that's the point that Archimedes gets to at about 900 years. He's lived his life. He's had many, many, many generations of descendants, to the point that the latest is barely connected to him. And so, and the only people that he knows in the world that still remain are elves, who are, of course, live that long anyway. So that's the point at 900 years. But earlier on, it's a blessing. And I wanted to work out a mechanical way of doing both of those. And it occurred to me later that you can actually do the blessing and the manifestation of the full dragon thing separately. Hello! Yeah, I think I saw you in Kitten's chat when we were playing the other day. And yeah, I think you can separate it out. The blessing, it doesn't have to be removing of age blessing. It can be whatever a DM decides. I particularly like that one for the story and for the character. The idea of a dragon forming out of a blade in full ancient dragon form and winning the battle for you, yeah, that's unbalancing. Never ever going to actually use that in a game. It was there for flavour in the novel. It makes sense in a story. Oh, it's in Connors. Somewhere. So many people. Well, we'll have to talk about that later, Connor. The way that Rob came up with was basically if you choose to manifest the full dragon, you lose the magic sword. And I don't like that. But in a game, I'd never use it mechanically. It's something that was there entirely for roleplay. Yeah. It's not heavy on draconic creatures. I mean, I don't actually have a campaign. This is an item that relates to a character of mine. I just like dragons. Because dragons. Who couldn't like dragons? Yeah, and yeah, Connor. I mean, doing something that the dragons desire, and that was how I played it out in the story. It's the dragon's choice, not the wielders. And actually, when you use that argument, you can do anything. But mechanically in a game, that's then down to being entirely the GM's choice as to what fits the story narrative at the time. And it's not something that I want to ingrain mechanically in a homebrew, because then that puts it at the player's discretion rather than GM's. Because the GM can do anything. You can if you like, Taylor. Actually, wait, I need to permit you. If it's a link, let me know when you're ready, I'll give you a permit. Otherwise, you'll get purged, and we don't want to do that. Cool. Where did that come up anyway? Of course that comes up on the screen that I don't want it to. Right. I'll have a look at that later. Right. So that's where we are at the moment. It's taken me an hour just to talk through where we are before I've even done anything. So, there are a couple of things that I want to add. The main one is in terms of communication. So, at the start, it's sort of tingling sensations, sort of emotional expression. Those are not the same thing. So, a tingling sensation, or emotional expression, or some kind of mental ping. Yeah, your D&D stream, D&D homebrew stream the other day was absolute chaos, Connor. So you've got those options, and then more explicitly through dreams and visions whilst asleep. That's always going to be the case. Happy with that. Now the emotional sense, I'm thinking in terms of sort of empathic emotions. So if you get the sense that the dragon is concerned about something, or amused, or what have you, you get those emotions sort of flooding through, but you don't necessarily know the context. So you could be having an amusing conversation with a friend, or a witty conversation with a friend, and the dragon finds it funny, and you can get the sense mentally, whilst being awake, that the dragon's amused. A race of plant-based draconic humanoids formed when an ancient true dragon's blood is spilled into the sapling of a wooded plant. That sounds really cool. Really cool. I'll have a look at that later. Also sounds similar to twig blights, but in a good sense. So yes, so that's the limit of the communications to start with. What I want to do is... Oh, the other thing I didn't mention. At some point, because... so in another campaign I'm playing, we're playing with Twilight Clerics, who have the ability to grant dark vision to other players for a period of 1 hour. And I like that idea, particularly because I get the sense... So, Archimedes is human. He doesn't have dark vision. You're going to have scenarios where you're going to walk into a place and you don't want a shining bright light on your sword. So, having the ability to grant dark vision, and it makes sense. This sword has blind sight out to 120 feet. It ought to be able at some point to grant some kind of dark vision, or sort of equivalent. So that's another thing I'm going to add. What point? Don't know. So there are various levels of communication. So we've got the dark vision. That's going to be the most mechanically important. We've got, I want telepathy between the sword and the wielder. And then at the superior level, I want to add in the ability to have a telepathic connection with an additional entity, but would probably require touch. Grant blind sight, so that races with dark vision don't feel left out. No, it's only to the wielder. It's not... Yeah, I want... So, I was thinking just dark vision. What if the wielder's a drow? Oh, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Yeah, because I'm thinking about it in terms of granting somebody who doesn't have dark vision, giving them dark vision. Whereas, yeah, if it's used by somebody who already has dark vision, then that's of no benefit. But then at the same time, having a sword that can eliminate is not really of any benefit either. What's the distance on the drow dark vision? That's 120 feet, isn't it? Drow have overpowered dark vision. That's my takeaway from that. I mean, I was thinking of doing 120 feet dark vision. So characters that normally have 60 feet would then get 120. But Also then only restricted to an hour, and then only once per day. So if you have multiple encounters in the Underdark in a day, you're gonna get problems. The problem with granting blind sight, but then not being able to attack, then basically means that you've got somebody who can see the whole encounter field and then do nothing about it. Well, they can tell other people where things are, but it's then no fun to play that combat encounter. What I want is to basically just remove the frustration of the combat encounter. If you're a character who doesn't have dark vision. Although, I mean, Archimedes also has the alert feat, which I think even in darkness means that he can't be surprised. So, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll start putting these in. I don't know why there's a comma there. Be a full stop. The other thing I need to do is change that to version 6. If you use the sword to get... Yeah, but the thing is that when you're fighting in darkness, you have disadvantage on attacks anyway. Even if you know where the thing is. You can still attack in darkness. That I like. Characters who already have dark vision, the normal range of dark vision is doubled. Right. Is it just one or two? Wait. The strike through is how I put notes in my documents, by the way. Right, so vision to 120 feet. Dark vision range doubled. Now I wasn't sure whether I wanted to put that there or the next one. At what point do we get telepathic communication? On 10th level makes sense. So, the weapon communicate with owner telepathically to range of 120 feet. I might also include a version of that up there. If wielding the weapon. Hello, Essa. Welcome. I'm doing some work on my Dragon Blade. Trying to put in a few enhancements, which will still hopefully not make it overpowered, but more in line with what I want for it. Now for me, at the awakened state, being able to telepathically command the sword to illuminate, and also having sword grant dark vision for 1 hour once per long rest implies that you can have telepathic communication. So I think whilst wielding the weapon, I think these all apply whilst holding the sword. So you have dark vision granted by the sword for an hour. You then let go of the sword or you throw it. But the moment that you're not holding the sword, you lose that dark vision. So any range spells, so I have some range spells that involve throwing the sword. And I think at that point, those should be at disadvantage. As per normal, or not. If you don't have dark vision normally, those will be at disadvantage. As per normal rules. We need to revise this one. I need to come up with names for each of these as well. And then this one will be owner can enable weapon to communicate telepathically with another person that both must be in touch, bring the thought. Which I probably explained far better in RP than I have done there. Oh, I broke the page. Why is it when you've just about fit everything you're happy with, you're one paragraph over? Oh well. It's going to be more than that anyway. In that case, let's create a new page. This is now page 2. I'm sure there's a way of setting these automatically. Auto-incrementing page number. Let's do that then. Rather than mucking about with it. Yep. I don't know why I didn't do that before. Right. Like that. Right. So, where were we? We broke the page. Move that down now. Connor, if you're still around, what's your view on these, the magical damage bonus being elemental? Is that actually reduce? I mean, that would reduce the power of it, because then you could be facing something that is resistant to that element. You're almost done cleaning the kitchen. Right. Musical interlude. I could actually do that. In that case, I'll start writing these out properly. I need to give these names. Anyone good at names? Um, I'll just call it illumination for now. I want ability names. Because each of these are abilities that can be triggered. And I don't want to just... What I want to be able to do is say, right, I trigger illumination, rather than go, I can do stuff that does stuff. And then have to read out the whole thing. You're being very productive, Connor. For 2:30 in the morning. No, other way. 12:30. Right, so my question to you, right? We talked about we've got a +1 bonus to attack and damage. I'm thinking of making that +1 bonus to damage being a given element. For you, once attacks are magical anyway, the element damages flavor. The problem is that mechanically, if I said that damage is fire, and you've got something that's resistant to fire, you then basically lose that extra damage. Although I suppose on a +1, does that matter? Probably not. Probably not. Yeah, that's true. The one thing that's amusing me mentally is that if I, as my sword mage, am making an attack that with a cold-based arcane technique, so I could attack something, do cold damage, and then you get fire damage on top of that, which I think is funny. You reckon that's awesome, right? You love it a lot. Cool. Right. So plus and damage roll. I might have to separate these out, I think. So an elemental damage die? You mean more than just +2? That could get quite insane. D4. I mean, I'd like that. I would like that. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Essa. So it'll average 2.5. That's a good point. So overall, it's not that much. I mean, bear in mind, Essa, that you get things like the flame blade enhancements to weapons that does, I think, 2d6 fire damage on every attack. I need to look that up now. Yeah, you're right. At 10th level, that is small. Game rules. Equipment. No, it's not equipment. It's magic items. Blade. Blade. They don't have a flame blade. Oh, it's flame tongue. Right. Yeah, okay. Listen to this. You're also being productive because you fell asleep on the couch after 10. That's fair, that's fair. The flame tongue weapon. It's a longsword. You can use a bonus action to speak this magic sword's command words, causing flames to erupt from the blade. These flames shed a bright light in a 40-foot radius and dim light for an additional 40 feet. While the sword is ablaze, it deals an extra 2d6 fire damage to any target it hits. The flames last until you use a bonus action to speak the command word again, or until you drop or sheath the sword. There's no limitations to that. It's 2d6 on every single damage roll. No limit. Look up Flame Tongue, Essa. Well, the thing is, even if you drop or sheath the sword, no, it doesn't have a plus to attack. If you drop or sheath the sword, there's nothing that's stopping you from reigniting it. There's no limitations on the number of times you can do it. There's no limitations on once per short rest or once per long rest. It's any time. In actual fact, it's in the basic rules, so I can just link you to it. No limitations at all. Well, I mean, it's only a rare weapon. Oh, and it can be applied to a greatsword, a longsword, a rapier, a scimitar, or a short sword. Anyway, we're digressing. Yeah. Exactly. There are so many things in D&D that is just broken. Right, I was getting distracted. So we just call that dark vision. Okay, so +1 bonus to damage rolls. how do you say this? Of the dragon's element type. Because I can't be bothered to type out of the element type of the great worm whose soul it contains. Because that's too wordy, I might have to change that. The famous Fall series by the prolific Oh dear. You know the feeling if you build up to one particular event in D&D game for months and when it's about to happen, the session ends. Are you referring to our arriving in Sleepy Doop? Yeah, and now we've got to wait a month before we actually do it. So by the time we get there, Etta will be super hyped. Yeah, I've used element type here because in the stats here, I've referred to it as element. And it's easier to say element type than to say of the breath weapon, particularly when you get to ancient dragons, because they get different types of breath weapon. Dragon, ancient. Ooh, good types. Alignment. Any good alignment, right. So the gold dragon, for instance, has 2 breath weapons. It has a fire breath weapon, and it has a weakening breath weapon. No? Yeah, that was the gold one. The silver one has a cold breath and a paralyzing breath. Copper has acid and slowing. Bronze has lightning and repulsion. And brass has fire and sleep. So yeah, I figured specify element type. And I use that terminology with the Sword Mage as well. It's just so much easier to refer to it that way. And I mean, you understand what it means. So, we'll do a similar thing on enhanced. At what point did you reckon that it should go up to a D4? Enhanced. Okay. Right. So, still just a +2 bonus to attack. And then the 1d4. Bonus 2 damage rolls. Of and a 1d4 plus 1d4. Correct, because at superior you get the Ring of Spell Storing effect, and I can't justify giving it a Ring of Spell Storing effect and upping it to a +3. I say that a Moonblade can have up to 6 effects on it, but we'll ignore that for now. I have to say, doing Homebrew while streaming is so much more intense than doing it not streaming. But it's also great. You go, everybody's watching me! But at the same time, everybody has ideas! Yeah. I mean, fortunately this is just homebrew just for me. I mean, yeah, somebody else may come to me and go, hey, your Dragon Blade is cool, can I use it? I go, yeah, sure. But other than that, it's mostly just for me. Yeah, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. Right. Basic. Telepathy. Hey. Yeah, I was amused by that. If you metagame, your character will die. Whereas my attitude is, I don't care about spoilers. I will happily read ahead in an adventure so that I'm prepared. I, as a player, am prepared for what's coming up. And so that I can have a pre-inclination of what my character choices will be. Because my ability to be spontaneous is incredibly poor. And so having some mental preparation of what's coming up allows me, ironically, not ironically, semi-ironically, to be more spontaneous in how I make my character choices. Because my characters will behave the way that my characters behave, regardless what I know. But if I know more, I can make more informed choices as a player as to how my character behaves. Unintuitively, Yeah, that's probably, yeah, you know what I mean. Um, yeah, I have no idea how. I don't like mystery, Essa. I'm the sort of guy who will read the plot outline. I just pulled it here. The plot outline of a mystery thriller or what have you to find out what happens, so that I can actually watch it without being on edge. Because if I'm on edge when I'm watching a suspenseful film or what have you, I'm not enjoying it. And so, if it's a good film, I'll then go and watch it a second time, knowing what happens, and I can just sit there and enjoy it play out. And this is one of the reasons why I don't like horror. I don't like not knowing what's going to happen. And so yeah, I will happily read spoilers. That doesn't bother me. I don't care about mystery. That's not where the fun comes. Yeah. Thank you, kitten. But the other aspect is that if you're doing a game that is deep in role playing, where you've got sort of in-depth moments building to a dramatic conclusion, if the people involved know where that's going to go, know where that dramatic conclusion is going to be, the actual step-by-step roleplay is improvised. Yeah. But you're both collaborating to get to that dramatic point. If neither of you know that that's where it's going, it's not going to get there as well. And so, from my perspective, yeah, and I understand people love spoilers. There are people who love not knowing. They love the mystery. I'm not that person. I like the dramatic story, and I like building to that point. And if that means that I know where it's going, that's fine by me. And I mean, the other aspect of it is frustration. If I'm playing a game where I don't know where things are going and I don't understand what's happening, I find that frustrating rather than fun. And if I know some of the motivations behind what things are happening now, I can go, okay, this is frustrating in this moment, but I understand why it's happening this way. Yeah, gem dragons are interesting. So you've got metallic dragons that are good, chromatic are bad, the gem dragons are the neutral dragons. So they slot into those alignments. If you want, I'm not going to insist that you tell me, Essa. But if you think it would help, yes, there are gem dragons, kitten. There's a new dragon book coming out, D&D dragon book coming out later in the year. The other thing, Essa, is if you tell me what happens now, by the time we play, I will have forgotten. So you could do it that way. Right. Okay, so we're adding 1d4 to damage rolls. Yeah, okay, we did that. Illumination. Dark vision. Right. I need to word this properly. So, while I can't even type now. The board you can the bonus action telepathically command it to grant you should dark vision be capitalized? Probably not. Dark vision. It was a remarkably thorough sidetrack. But, you know, you get an insight into my psyche. Telepathic. This gives you dark vision to a range of 120 feet and lasts for 1 round. And if you already possess dark vision, your dark vision range is doubled to a minimum of 120 feet. Once used, this effect cannot be used again until the warder has completed a long rest. Yeah, Asa, I'm very similar with Connor as well, which is probably why we all get on so well. Do I need to mention what happens if you let go of the sword? Or do you think that's sufficiently well implied? I mean, there are differences, Connor. There are differences. So, when I say it lasts for an hour, do you think people will understand that if you temporarily let go of the sword and then pick it up again, it retains? You retain that dark vision. I'm a really weird person in that I like company, but I'm also strongly introverted. So yeah, I think I agree. I'll leave it down to individual discretion. But the intention is that if you're holding a sword and it grants you dark vision for an hour, you throw it. Whilst you're not holding it, you don't have dark vision. But if you get it back again, by whatever means, you then have dark vision again for the remainder of the hour. But I think that's the intention. That should be understood as the intention. I think anybody who's actually going to have to understand that is here in this chat, so they know that already. So, excellent. I'm glad. And if somebody needs clarification, they can ask me anyway. Right, so we've got 3 things there. I've literally doubled the number of things that this can do at this point. So you've got the illumination, which is basically an at-will, takes a bonus action, but it's at-will. You've got dark vision, which is a bonus action, but only lasts an hour. And you only get it once per long rest. And telepathy, let's reuse the wording. What did I just do? Right. Basic telepathy. Whilst holding the sword. You can communicate with it telepathically. That's all that needs to be said there, isn't it? What's implied by that is also what's granted by the dark vision. The sword can warn you that there are things coming. Is that full telepathy? Two-way conversation. what pseudo-dragon level telepathy? Let me look up pseudo-dragon. Pseudo-dragon. Thought that was how I spelt it. Right. Understands common draconic but can't speak them. Limited telepathy. The pseudo-dragon can magically communicate simple ideas, emotions, and images telepathically with any creature within 100 feet that can understand a language. That's good, Esther. So, emotions is what you get at the base level. So, the weapon communicates by transmitting emotions, sending a tingling sensation through the wielder's hand, or by a mental ping if the wielder is within 120 feet of it. So that's the basic level. If we're going with the limited telepathy, at this point, then all you're adding is mental images. Which, thinking about it, being able to telepathically see images is actually sometimes more useful than verbal communication. But yeah, I'm thinking here, this is actually full telepathy. I've called it basic telepathy because it's literally range of touch. You had to be holding the weapon to communicate. It and it with you. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Touch telepathy. And again, that's limited to just the sword and the wielder. Whereas there's a later version, so the next version up is at the enhanced level. You've got that telepathic community up to 120 feet. And then at the superior level, you've got touch telepathy with a third person. So you as the owner can enable a third person to engage in telepathic communication with the dragon, but only if you're touching. It's only rare because it can do one. Yours is definitely legendary because of at least magic sword with additional damage, doubles and night field, spell slayer, a weapon of warming. Warming? It doesn't do warming. Maybe I should add that. Yeah, Dragon Sword is... Oh, warning. Uh, 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 yes, it's definitely legendary. Where is it? Magic items. Not Mon. Moon. SAU ought to be able to see this. Do I link to it? So, the Moonblade is the primary inspiration. And the Moonblade can have up to 7 properties on it. And a lot of those properties are quite powerful. And that's the reason, for instance, why I'm not going to a +3 sword. Because a +3 sword is usually just a +3 sword. Yeah, exactly, Connor. And that's one thing that's really niggled me about some of the specific D&D mechanics. Things like, well, you can have a green flame blade, which is a cantrip, which, when you hit something, will cause flames to jump from your blade. Well, first it ignites the blade, it causes flames to then jump from your blade to burn a second person. Right? So, why is it that I then can't use that spell to just ignite the blade and give me light? And it's specific D&D mechanics like that you sort of go, if I have a weapon that has the ability to more or less at will ignite into flames, I ought to be able to use that to light a campfire without having to actually whack the campfire. Anyway. The other thing is that in terms of the number of properties, telepathy, things like telepathy is just an extension of the base property. There are a lot of sentient swords that will have as a natural part of it full telepathy. You have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm not going to try and start explaining in German. That would fail spectacularly. I've been at this for 2 hours now. Alright. Yeah. Don't worry about it. Right. I'm gonna copy that there. Just left it. You can communicate with the board and it with you telepathically up to a... I just typed that already. Range of 120 foot. As much as I hate to type it, enhanced touch telepathy. Well, give another creature hold the sword. That shouldn't happen to you, Connor. I thought you were a regular. Connor over. Probably because you've not really dropped into my chat before. Is that right? No, it's because Streamlabs doesn't recognize VIPs. That's the problem. Try it again. Blue Amy donates to the I vaguely recall seeing that before. Anyway, right. You're distracting me, Connor. How dare you? I know I did that to you, but that's not the point. I love that the goblin's called Thaco. Right, I need a name for this ability that's not Death Ward. Connor, give me a name for Death Ward that's not Death Ward. Last chance. Hard to kill. Hard to kill. You want me to call an ability hard to kill? Fine. That needs a full stop on it, as does that. Right. Now, this ability. I wonder, can you do...
That's a big number.
Mole! Hey, Mo. Okay, that doesn't do what I thought it did. Have I been streaming for... Have I been an affiliate for 16 months? Have I been an affiliate for 16 months? Anyone know how to do indents? Other than just putting in non-breaking space. Indents. Pushing it in that way. Yeah, but I want a bullet point as well. Because that doesn't do it. No, tabs don't work in this. It's a markdown thing. Unbreaking space. No, it's not an unbreaking space. Nested lists, yeah. Ah, okay. So it's got to be 2 spaces in. There we go. Got it. Got it. Thank you, Mo. Right. So, the first one is brightening presence. Because that's literally what it is. Right. So I need to better explain what that illusion is, but we'll get there at some point. That's not how I'm going to actually describe it, but it'll remind me later. Right. Intimidating presence. You can tell I didn't write this particular bit, it had double spaces after a full stop. What is that double? Because it was tapped. That's why. Right. So, between surrounding and habiting in the same place. When this illusion, I don't like calling it illusion, but it will do for now, is you can choose one of the following effects. Once used, this effect cannot be used again until the wielder is completely long rest. You sit around. Time for a chat. You sit around and have a chat with your dragon friend. Yes. Any of these. Bill. Come over the page again. Effects can be initiated by the dragon. Discretion at will. I'm going to have to do some serious reorganizing. For the moment, we'll move it to the next page. So yeah, any of these effects, this effect, that's not right, any of these effects can be initiated by the dragon at the GM's discretion at will. Intimidating presence. Right. That doesn't require that anymore. for the next minute, the wielder gains advantage on I need a list of checks. Deception, intimidation, performance, persuasion. Does it make sense to help with deception checks? Or should it just be intimidation and persuasion? Yeah. My only thought about it is that if you look at copper dragons, they are skilled in deception. But I suppose that would be used as persuasion, wouldn't it? Yeah, let's just go intimidation and dragon. Yeah, wielder, sure. Yeah. Okay, so the wielder gains advantage on intimidation and persuasion checks. I think I should put that the other way around. The wielder gains advantage on intimidation for the next minute. I can think of scenarios where it would make sense to use persuasion. But I suspect that will be So if you have a scenario where you're not attempting to actually intimidate the person that you're discussing with, but they are either Um, hmm. But you're trying to emphasize who you are. Yeah, if you're trying to emphasize identity, for instance. Yeah, I suppose. And I suppose if somebody was there who wanted some kind of telepathic conversation with the actual dragon, that would be a different skill anyway. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, that's a good point, Essa. So in our game earlier, I explained that my Storm Sorcerer, Garrick, has a very good intimidation skill. But he's not intimidating in a frightening sense. He's intimidating in the sense that he has a commanding presence. So he's a sailor who held a respected position on board ship, and he could issue orders that people would, with a commanding presence that people would respect. And so that was the example of intimidating that I use there. He's not actually a frightening person. He's not somebody who would go at you. He's just a forceful presence. Yeah, I think you're right, Essa. It's the same thing. You would use this ability as a force of presence thing, which, yeah, is still intimidating. Although I suspect if we ever came up with a scenario where it made more sense to you for it to be persuasion, it would be apparent at the time, and Connor would probably let me do it that way. Oh, intimidating. Typo. Yes. There you go. I think we were done, to be honest. So let's quickly run through it. So the main changes from the last one that you've seen, Connor. So you got this mental ping within 120 feet, like the alarm spell. That's how I wanted it anyway, but it wasn't in the original documentation. I changed the DC to use the Dragon's Intelligence modifier rather than the owner's primary stat, because quite frankly, it shouldn't make much difference, and if the owner has a low primary stat, I think it's still fair to use the dragons. The bond hasn't changed, that hasn't changed. We've changed the damage bonus to be the element type of the dragon. Illumination hasn't changed. The ability to grant dark vision up to 120 feet for an hour, or double your range for an hour if you've already got dark vision. Touch telepathy with the sword. Level 2, change the bonus damage to 1d4. I've added to the we've got the frightening presence, but I've added intimidating presence. I need to come up with better wording for this, but it's also hilarious as it is. But basically, you summon an illusion of the dragon just to sit there and have a chat. Works for me. Plus telepathy, communicate with the sword up to 120 feet. The superior range, hard to kill was already there. And then we enable a third party to communicate with the dragon through touch. And then we've got stat blocks. There you go. Those are the changes. It's only taken us 2.5 hours. Yeah. I hope you all enjoyed that. You have a silly fluffy spell that you want to run by me. Go on then. What time is it? 2:30. So I've got some time before my my food arrives. That's all right. This is actually not a bad setup for doing D&D stuff. I hope it's all legible for everybody. Although I'd have thought that if it weren't, somebody would have told me by now. You must have a background as a chef to take the spell. It's a ritual that takes 3 hours to complete. Material components of food and drink. Ingredients worth at least 25 GP and the spell consumes. Then it's just a hero's feast. Yeah, it's always going to be difficult to read on mobile, I'm afraid. That sounds great, Connor. Makes it way too accessible. Maybe it's a fake hero's feast. A pseudo hero's feast. You probably weren't in my stream the other yesterday. I don't know if you're familiar with Asterix in Britain. Or Asterix in general. I'm sure you must be familiar with Asterix in general. In the comic Asterix in Britain, the two glorious ghouls go over and they help the Britons to save Britain from the Romans. And they want to give the Britons a magic potion, but they don't have any magic potion. But Getafix had given Asterix some random leaves, and since it was all he had, he threw the random leaves in the pot of boiling water and said, "There, magic potion," and the Britons drank it. And he got back at the end of it, and he asked Getafix, what it was and why it had such magical powers, and he said it was tea. And your Heroes Feast thing reminded me of that. It's a Heroes Feast that's not actually a Heroes Feast, but it has that effect because of what's the term? The fake effect, where your brain convinces you that something's true. Placebo, thank you. It's a placebo Heroes Feast. So it has some effect, but not the full magical effect. I think that will work. You know what? At some point I should do another stream like this, but go through my sword mage. Yeah, that would be so funny, Connor. So funny. You should do that, absolutely. Although,
They talk about another kind of world.
yes, do it. Do it. Do it.
What are you afraid of?
Yeah, at some point I will do another of these streams and I will take you all through my sword mage. Because I've shown a lot of people the sword mage as it's written. And there's a few people, Connor and Esther included, who I've discussed various things at length with. But it would be nice to actually go through the whole class and sit here and talk through the motivations for the various bits and pieces and explain the rules as intended for the way that I've done the class, and perhaps crowdsource some ideas for the bits that I still yet need to do, which is now getting minutely small. I'm getting so close to having it finished.
They talk about another kind of
4 or 5 years work. So happy. Anyway, I think I'm gonna call it. So thank you everybody for coming along. Just a bit, yeah, just a little bit. Thank you everybody for coming along. Those that are going to be around, I'm going to be playing Sea of Thieves with Mike at 7 o'clock BST this evening. So if you're around, join us for that. If you're not, have a good sleep. Or whatever else you do. Yeah. Ta-ra!